going fast is what I would say small founders have as
Mm.
like, and I know that my production timeline is much faster than, any of the businesses I worked at before. Like, I think one of the best operational decisions I made was probably my first hire. And what I mean by that is that I was so stuck on being a solopreneur that I was getting in my own way. There were two things that we understand that if a bowl has a flat bottom, it is easier for digestion. So that was like one thing that we have decided was like a non-negotiable. You're gonna love it, but like you're gonna question your sanity on other days. So really, that's like the uncomfortable
Hey
truth.
guys, welcome back to another episode of Pet Brand Podcast, where we dive into stories, strategies, and insight of founders and operators shaping the future of pet industry. I'm your host Varnit, and today we have a fantastic guest joining us, Trevor White, founder of Dogged and a canine nutritionist, who left his corporate career to build a brand focused on better products and smarter feeding for dogs. Trevor is on a mission to help pet parents understand what they are feeding their dogs and why it matters, creating thoughtfully designed products that support digestion, enrichment, and everyday well-being. His approach combines real-world practicality with science-backed thinking, making Dogged a brand that stands out in a crowded market. Trevor, welcome to the show. Great to have you here.
Wow, thank you. I'm happy to be here, and what an intro.
Great, great, great. So yeah, so to start from the beginning, Trevor, I want to start at the beginning because founders who leave, stable career usually do not do it impulsively, right? So there's
Yeah.
almost always sort of like a defining moment behind that decision. So you left a corporate finance career to build up a brand. What moment made you realize like this was not just an idea, but something, you were willing to bet your career on?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to really define maybe just one moment, but really just a series of moments leading me up to it. And I honestly attribute the career that I had prior to starting Dogged. And what that really was I was able to move from a role in finance to operations.
Wow.
And from there, I was able to really touch almost every facet of the business that I was at before. So I was working at a global retail company and felt like I was getting that entrepreneurial experience. And it really gave me the confidence to say, I've always wanted to do this, and
Uh,
now I've been equipped with some of those skills that could get me there. I've learned how to speak to factories, I've talked to larger customers, and so at the moment that I had made the decision to leave my job, I felt like the career I was in, and kudos to the employer that I had, really knew what I wanted to do in my life and was allowing me to have as many experiences to support that. So when I decided to leave, like the CEO and my CFO were both incredibly supportive of that because they knew they were helping me build to
yeah,
becoming an entrepreneur one day. So
yeah.
it was a really unique experience, but there was a culture prior that was all about goals, and I had to be really honest of saying, "Hey, one day I don't want to be here."
Wow.
And they being completely okay with that
Hmm.
and frankly supportive of that, like bringing me to conversations like, hey, you want to be an entrepreneur one day,
Hmm.
this is what you need to know. And so yeah, kudos to everyone who helped me get here.
Hmm. So you always wanted to focus on the pet industry, or did you had like other
Yeah.
industry in mind as well?
Yeah, I always wanted to be in the pet industry. A few years before, I had lost my French bulldog quite suddenly.
Hmm.
Both me and my wife, who is my co-founder,
Hmm.
really were reeling with that. But I think what that experience taught us is like the profound impact that pets have on humans' lives.
Definitely.
uh, yeah, it changed everything for us. And so, with the experience that I had in consumer retail for humans, really drove me to want to be in this space. And then when we decided to get a new puppy, she just suffered from a series of
Okay.
every like potential sensitivity, allergy. She was incredibly active, and she needed enrichment alongside with a ton of physical activity. And that's when I decided I'd go back to school while still at my corporate job to become a canine nutritionist.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. And a lot of founders who come through a podcast, describe themselves mission driven. But in reality, only few are responding to a problem. They truly understand at a deep level. So, what specific problem did you see in the pet industry that you believed was genuinely misunderstood or ignored?
Yeah, I think what's really cool about the pet industry is that I think there's like a ton of white space. I think that
Okay.
unfortunately the pet space really trickles behind what we see in the human space. So taking a lot of inspiration from the human space has been like a huge thing for me and my co-founder. But where I think that we are solving, I think we solve really two meaningful problems. But the first one being that we don't often see that products are both designed for dogs as well as for humans. So those two things aren't mutually exclusive. So often we'll
Mm-hmm.
see a product that works maybe really well for a dog, and it might not be something you're very proud to have in your home.
Yeah,
And vice
yeah.
versa, is that we might see something that looks maybe fits well into our home that we live with our dogs, but it's frankly a bad product. So we really felt like there was an opportunity to
Mm-hmm.
create functional products that pet parents were really proud to have left out. They could have their non-pet friends come over and say, "Hey, it's like a stunning enrichment toy, or it's a beautiful bowl. I love that color." And
Yeah.
so really that's where, our slow feeder region came in, and our enrichment based products. And then the other side of that is that I don't think a lot of people understand. Someone had made this comment to me the other day, which is that there's a certain lexicon that dog people have. Like they use certain language, and it
Yeah.
almost feels very exclusionary that
Yeah.
we are able to speak a different language. And so where we feel really proud and incentivized is to create functional feeding products. So, like our new Daily Canines symbiotic, we wanted to make very approachable to, if you are feeding the cheapest possible food or the best quality food, this product is for you. And how do we make this approachable, easy to understand? And so I've actually really had to rely on people who don't, like, if you're in the space, it's really hard to speak to people who don't speak dog, 12 hours a day every day. So I think there's a ton of opportunities to bring people in to drive for better things, but really try to solve. I think those two main problems are what we've been trying to tackle for a really
Mhm.
long time.
Love it, love it. And since you also come from like finance background, right? So it is rare in product-driven pet brands, and it often shapes how founder thinks about risk and sustainability. So how did
Yeah.
your CPA background change the way you approach risk, margin, and capital allocation when launching Dogged?
Yeah. Oh gosh. I think as a CPA, we are really primed to, be very like fearful of risk and
Okay.
not necessarily very tolerant.
Hmm.
So I actually, knowing my background, I tried to surround myself around advisors who were really aggressive on risk as well. So, just getting a different perspective. So I have an advisor and has been my best friend since I was 12. His name is Armand, and he comes from a marketing background. And I think we have just such opposing views, and it's really helped me to, like, lean into that risk side,
Hmm.
which has been really helpful. And then as for margin, I think it's almost a bit of a superpower to say, like, I can have a conversation with a factory, and I can know if something's going to make sense for us
Wow.
within 5 seconds, and so
Wow.
we can have those kinds of conversations really quickly. Like, we don't need to go
Hmm.
back to the drawing board.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's really helpful that way. So I think my CPA background has, like, really allowed me just to say, like, is this financially viable, and can we pivot really quickly? So that's been really helpful, is that having this background just allowed me to move way faster.
Hmm.
As for capital allocation, I had to have like a really honest like reckoning of just saying, like, it's what cash is in the bank account at the end of the
Mhm.
day. And so,
Mhm.
do we think that this can actually be a really great product segment for us, or do we risk on marketing here, or do we so like there's being cash poor and time poor, and
Mhm.
as a founder you're always time poor, so
Yeah.
how do you properly allocate cash has always been something we've thought about. So really, cash flow forecasting and calendar forecasting
Wow.
I think are two things that need to be like done at the exact same time.
Wow. Wow. And for the founders who don't really have this knowledge, like how do you think that they
Yeah.
should tackle these problems?
Yeah, I mean, I will say like leverage AI as much as you possibly
Okay.
can.
Mm-hmm.
If you are using Shopify, which I would imagine tons of founders are, there's something called Shopify Sidekick. So input as much possible information that you can, and
Yeah.
Sidekick will give you tons of different strategies on cost savings,
Wow.
where you should be spending your time, and it is really sensational. So like, and even for me as a CPA, I use it constantly. And then if those two aren't working for you, I would recommend is like, how do you trade services? So
Mm.
speaking back to my experience with my good friend Armand, we
Mm.
have very different experiences. So we have helped each other in a variety of different ways with our specialized skill set, free of transactions. It's a bartering system. And that's been incredibly helpful. So it's like if you have a skill set and
Yeah.
that's in
Yeah.
forecasting,
Mm.
well, who in your network is great at paid ads? And
Yeah.
how do you help each other in that
Mm.
regard? So my recommendation is like find friends with different skill sets, and you trade skill sets, trade stories, and that will be the most helpful thing you could do.
Love it, love it. Talking about the product market and differentiation, designing product that look good is one thing, but designing product that change behavior or physiology like is different level, right? Like
Yeah.
when creating slow feeders, what specific behavior or physiological outcomes were you optimizing for, and how did you validate them?
Yeah, really good question. I think like where we're always getting better at this, I think is the first standpoint.
Hmm.
In terms of enrichment, the research based studies are still new, so we had to like pull on to like whatever was possibly there. So there were two things that we understand: that if a bowl has a flat bottom, it is easier for digestion. So that was like one thing that we have decided was like a non-negotiable. So you'll see round curved bowls, and we wanted to make sure that they didn't have that. So you'll see in our bowls that we have a very flat bottom.
Okay.
So that's improving digestion
Hmm.
there. And then the second part, if you look at our 3-in-1, our lids are actually twice as thick. So, like in terms of the depth of our lick mats, they're than really anything we've seen on the industry from a lick mat. So we wanted there to be more licking and calming that
Hmm.
goes into that as well. And
Hmm.
knowing if it was lesser than that, people were probably going to be opting for, spreads like Greek yogurt and potentially peanut butter, these really high caloric products.
Hmm.
Whereas like maybe you could now with a thicker lick mat use food that might be more nutritionally dense, and it would still have the same licking effect.
Wow.
And so there we were trying to be really, really intentional of like, okay. And then the way that we would optimize for that is that we would get our original design, that
Hmm.
we would work with our designer, after we had given our brief, we would 3D print it, and then
Wow.
we would inspect it left, right, and center. Getting things 3D printed in food safe filament is super important. You can test for that. My dog has been our tester from day one, and then we
Hmm.
will optimize from there. We have an amazing ambassador group as well that would come in, give us feedback
Wow.
throughout the product development process, and say, "Hey, we like this, this, and this. We hate this." And so then we would go from there and be like, "My dog won't use this." And so we try to get a variety of dogs and their opinions before we open what you call a production mold. So silicone goes into like a steel mold,
Hmm.
and that can be quite costly. So we just want to make sure that we're getting the right feedback loop,
Yeah.
especially from people who aren't just saying yes, no. They're giving us real meaningful feedback.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so those are the behaviors that we're looking for is like, how does it take them a long amount of time, but it's not. So the depth didn't affect frustration, we noticed. But
Wow.
sometimes if you lower or you like make the opening smaller in a lick mat, that's where frustration will call, or they'll get to the point that they'll walk away from the product. So we just wanted to make sure that they were still spending a lot of time in the product, but never walking away or getting frustrated with the product. So those were like our kind of two big tests that we did when we were
Mhm.
creating that product, trying to change those behaviors.
Love it, love it. And how much
Yeah.
time, like approximately how much time does it take to create like a new product or
Yeah.
like do the research and everything?
Yeah. Yeah. So, it really depends on the product. So when it comes to our slow feeders, that from ideation to getting live to a product probably takes us about 8 or 9 months,
Wow.
which is really, really fast. And what I'll say about that is like, as a small business and as a founder, there are thousands of businesses that are bigger with larger production teams. And that is the one thing that we can do really quickly. So, um, if there is something that comes through product development that needs to be done quickly, like everything gets dropped because like
Mm-hmm.
that I
Mm-hmm.
know is going to be a revenue pipeline going forward. But it does take quite a bit of time. And so having like a clear outline to your factory, to all of your stakeholders with feedback. Is it worth paying for express shipping for 3D printing? And all of those decisions, I think, are super important to make. But going fast is what I would say small founders have
Mm-hmm.
as like, and I know that my production timeline is much faster than any of the businesses I worked at before. Like,
Wow.
my previous business is working on products that are coming out in 2028, and I just don't have that kind of runway at this point in time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we have to move really fast when
Mm-hmm.
we think we've gotten it right.
Mm-hmm. And what about the costing? Like how much does it cost to research part and
Yeah,
do the
yeah.
production new product?
Yeah, I think once again, I think it depends on the industry, but I would say to like start a new product, and if you are really doing all of it yourself, you
Mm.
can do it for relatively inexpensive,
All
but at
right.
the same time, that takes you longer. So like if you're outsourcing your design, okay, great, then like we're talking a few $1,000s there. A mold generally is a few $1,000s
Mm-hmm.
as well. And then to, of course, like take your inventory position. How many colors do you want to test? And
Yeah.
so Pantone being the way that we like select colors
Mm.
is highly subjective. So we would send colors to do color matching. That costs more in shipping, and then
Yeah.
so there's lots of different ways to do it and to do it inexpensively or extremely expensive. So
Mm.
it just depends on the kind of founder you are and
Yeah.
the way
Yeah.
you want to do it. I
Mm.
wanted to be super hands-on with the development of our last two products, so our 3-in-1 and our daily canine symbiotic. It
Yeah.
was really important that I was there from start to finish. But like the way that our cost structure works with future product development might look completely different, and that I might be involved at the beginning and at the end, but that middle 80%
Yeah.
will continue to work with a team
Mm-hmm.
to make that be developed. But yeah,
Love it. Love it. Talking about
yeah,
the operation and execution part of the podcast, early operational
yeah.
decisions can quietly determine long-term success, right? So what operational
Yeah.
decision early on saved you the most money or prevented like a future bottleneck?
Yeah. I think one of the best operational decisions I made was probably my first hire. And what I mean by that is that I was so stuck on being a solopreneur that I was getting in my own way. And hiring someone who has the right mindset and not the right skill, it was probably the best thing that I had ever done. So my first
Okay.
hire had had never worked in the pet industry
Okay.
and was really, really keen and really
Okay.
excited.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he just had every aspect that you want out of someone who's curious, someone who wants to drive for excellence. And he was really able to open up sales channels in ways that I didn't expect. And I was really, really proud of what Dom was able to provide for Dogged. And yeah. So, I mean, an operational decision is like, I know we're always scared for that first hire, but
Yeah.
what I will say is find someone who will literally want to do anything for
Mm,
you
mm.
and make sure it's someone you want to work with. Like,
Yeah.
your first hire is going to be your best friend as
Yeah.
much as
And
you
also they
might
need
want
to
to
be
say,
passionate about the what you're working on.
yeah, and so like if I think this is a really good example. So Dom was helping us reach out to B2B partners, so reaching out to retailers. For someone who may not have even known what a slow feeder was before starting, he was able to really open up really key sales channels that are still beneficial to us today. But at the same time, he like helped me paint our first office, and we got our biggest order of like four like flats, and he's out here like taking boxes off the shelf, and he was like thrilled to be able to have that kind of variety. And so I would say like hire right and actually hire early would probably be the best operational decision I ever made.
Mhm. Love it. And
Yeah.
also, inventory is one of the most dangerous areas for DTC brand because it ties up cash, which also, carrying
Yeah.
risk, right? So, what forecasting system or logic do you use to balance stock risk versus cash flow?
Yeah. I think like being a really young business, like you can't really use historicals like to say like, hey, this is what the business is going to do
Yeah,
and what we're
exactly.
and it's so there's like two sides of it that I think are really, really important. So who's selling your product? So we're both a D2C brand and we also work with a ton of retailers. So we have worked with a few key accounts here. I'm based in Vancouver, BC, Canada, and we'll reach out to a few of our key accounts and say, here's our sample. Will this sell in your store? What's the demographic? What's
Hmm.
your vibe? And we'll actually go and show our catalog, like even before we do our first production run,
Hmm.
and ask, like, I think these colors are going to perform, these won't. And so I think that in the moment, in-person selling, you get the most realistic feedback. People will tell you if something's ugly or not. Whereas although there are keyboard warriors, it's generally, I think people can have a bit, they can pause for a second before writing something
Yeah,
back
yeah, yeah.
and say, I love it or not. But going to some key partners has been really helpful. So, and then at the same time is like, what historical information do you have to inform? So our best selling color is our buttercream. So it's a bit of an off-white. And then with our regular slow feeders, and then we released a sand, which was a bit more of a tan color. And so we were able to infer that like that color
Hmm.
has done really well for us. Like also we noticed that softer lines. So if there's
Hmm.
a harsher line within the product, like it looks a bit more masculine, and we have a quite a large female demographic for our product.
Yeah,
So those were like things that started informing our decisions a lot more. Like the more pigmented the product, maybe it was still important to have as part of the collection. So starting to make decisions on, okay, well, what information do we actually have? Who's going to actually be selling this product along
yeah,
from ourselves? And how do we make those decisions? So that's where we have gone. We've also been in the position where we've had a ton of different product that maybe we didn't want to have at a certain moment in time. And I think that's what's really nice about being like a really small organization.
hmm,
Whereas
hmm.
I have noticed that there's been a failed linkage between, an inventory planning department and a marketing department, and being able to change your marketing plan really quickly, or like on your e-commerce site. So one thing
Yeah,
we've seen is like bundling has really helped us. So we actually bundled a product that we took a really deep position on. that people could buy four of that product at a significant discount. So that helped us move through a lot of volume that they wouldn't necessarily have seen before. So we were just trying to link like, okay, we took a big risk here. How do we move these units even faster
Mm.
without, spending a ton on an ad campaign? But we can just do these like small strategic things. Can this show up in email four more times than, something that we don't have a strong inventory position in? So,
Love it, love it. And
yeah.
what does your weekly operational dashboard looks like? Which
Yeah.
metrics do you personally track religiously?
Yeah. Yeah, I think the obviously the number one is sales. I will say that like at the end of the day, that's what it looks like.
Yeah.
But where I do want to see things is traffic and conversion and our average order value. So those are the three that I necessarily want to like look at. So are people coming to our site? And then like are people converting? If they're not converting, where were they going and where were they leaving?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then like so like I guess those are like our top line, and then like on the back end is like our inventory position. So I want to see like where our inventory is sitting. So we now have two pools of inventory, one in Canada, one in the US,
Wow.
and so we want to see where our depth is and isn't, and whether or not we need to write a new PO. We're trying
Mhm.
to operationalize how often we write POs and do we need to, write POs before Chinese New Year or not? And so those are all things that we want to do. But yeah, traffic, where our traffic, how did our traffic get here? Our
Mhm.
conversion, our average order value, and then our inventory positions. Those are our non-negotiables. And the
Mhm.
last one that I'll tell people is like, look at your bank account every single day. Just see how much cash is in the bank. It's
Yeah,
incredibly important.
definitely.
And so, yeah, that's the
Love it.
list.
Love
Yeah.
it. Talking about marketing and customer acquisition, what are your
Yeah.
top three channels currently driving the highest revenue for Dogged, not just traffic?
Yeah. Yeah. Funny enough, we always joke that we built our business on Instagram. And
Okay.
what I do mean by that is that organic posting has always been a really great revenue channel for us.
Mm.
And that has both benefited B2B and D2C. The other, and whether or not you'd call it a marketing channel or a sales channel, and I kind of think of them really in the same, is that sales informs marketing and marketing informs sales.
Yeah.
But on our B2B side is frankly, and it's ugly and it's manual, but it's manually reaching out. I think there is actually nothing more powerful than calling and sending a sample of
Wow.
our
Mm.
product. So as much as it's tough, there are amazing software tools that can help you track. And then the
Mm.
last one's email. Probably as a new founder, I had overlooked, but
Mm.
cultivating your email list has been something that we've refocused on in the last
Wow.
few months, and has
Mm.
continued to be a really significant revenue channel for us. And we're really excited to like double down on the community that has been so kind to allow us to, write into their inbox.
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
obviously retention is, where the real profitability lies, right? Especially in the
Yeah.
consumer brand. So what percentage of your growth comes from returning customers, and what
Yeah.
systems specifically drive that retention?
Yeah, so our retention's actually about 50% right now. So like which we're really, really proud of.
Well,
And I think that we always talk about the bowl being the gateway to nutrition for us. So
mm,
things that have been helping us drive our retention amount has been sampling. So one thing that we have made a really important thing, and talking about inspiration from the human industry is, you know, for people who are in the US and Canada, like there's Ulta and Sephora, and they have amazing sampling programs. And so what we have done is as we give everyone a sample of our daily canine symbiotic. And I know that it can be a lot to ask someone to buy a supplement that their dog may not like. And we're really proud to say that we have not actually met a dog who's rejected the supplement yet. So from that side, that's my little plug here today.
yeah.
Um, but we want to make sure that if we're getting people to return, we can like allow them to, try some of our other products within the consumables because that's really where we see like our lifetime value growing.
Mm.
The other thing that we have just noticed, like from an observation side, is that someone will buy one bowl, and we're really proud to say that often their second order is buying three more. So
Wow.
the idea is that we have variety. There's different patterns. It creates novelty for dogs, and they love the bowl so much that they want a few more when that first one is in the dishwasher or a few are in the dishwasher. So really trying to cultivate like, hey, we have a bundling program, or did you know we have more?
Yeah.
And
Mm.
and effectively communicating with that customer, like it doesn't end there, and then also giving them information. So the last strategy we have is that we have a blog, which we like to call our education hub. So,
Okay.
you may have came for a bowl, but you stayed for information afterwards. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
building that community that and builds trust, right? So, giving away free information because that's what our community deserves. They want to know more about how their dog can live,
Mm.
for as long as possible.
Mm-hmm. Love it. Love it. Let's imagine, you had to like rebuild everything from scratch today, with
Yeah.
no audience and no customer base. So what exact marketing playbook would you execute in your first 90 days?
Yeah. So in the first 90 days, and I don't have a product, like I don't have a product in hand yet to sell. I
Mm-hmm.
think the thing that I would be doing is I would be focusing completely on storytelling. Why am I here? Why do I
Okay.
exist?
Okay.
Who is
Mm.
my villain? Like, I think is really important to
Mm.
understand is
Mm.
like, what are we fighting up against?
Yeah.
And I think that would be the areas that I would really start on is like what is it that I'm trying to communicate both from a founder perspective and also from like a brand perspective would
Mm.
be absolutely what I want to do. And I would
Mm.
want to be preempting the market as much as I possibly can. So how does that look? Like I'd be reaching out to everyone and be like, we're building something great.
Yeah.
Like in the beginning days, in those first 90 days, I would be effectively using my team to, build as much hype, reaching out to as many
Yeah.
people as
Yeah.
we possibly
Mm.
can and getting that reach. So when we think about that first 90 days, everyone's going to be in the top of funnel. They don't know about you, they haven't heard about you. So
Mm.
introductory would be very, very important.
Mm.
So mixing
Mm.
on building the story and then also making a ton of relatable content to get as many eyes on that product as possible
Mm.
or
Any
what will be that product one day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. Any specific for pet brand founder who's just getting started, any
Yeah.
specific platform that you would choose?
To market, I think this is an excellent question, and this will be caveated that I am like based in Canada. So, I think the number one and number two markets that I would consider, and I'm very biased because I think that these two have worked for me. Is like I think social media is exactly where you want to be, and you
Hmm.
want to get people onto an email list. So,
Okay.
I would
Hmm.
pick personally. I'm a millennial. I love Instagram. It's done
Okay.
really well for us. We have an
Okay.
amazing community
Wow.
there of other millennials. And
Hmm.
then the second would be LinkedIn, is that I actually think that like people really underestimate. And I know for you, Varnit, like a big fan of LinkedIn as well, but like it's your reach is really profound and the algorithm's actually quite kind.
Hmm.
So I would say both of those. And from the LinkedIn perspective, I think B2B more so than like,
Yeah. Yeah.
your
Exactly.
D2C. So I think like depending on where you want to be, are you a primarily D2C brand, are you a B2B brand, or are you both? And I think in the pet space, if in my perspective, I think it's really important to be in both. But I would definitely use those two as the levers for both of those because I think that you can like punch far beyond your weight
Yeah.
rather than some other platforms.
Hmm. Definitely. Talking about the revenue scaling and growth levers, growth usually comes down to a few key decisions, that change the
Yeah.
trajectory of a company. What single decision or lever has had the biggest impact on revenue growth so far for you?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's such a like a single decision, my goodness. I would have to say it would probably be opening a warehouse in the
Hmm.
US
Hmm.
and offloading that responsibility, just because I think like the way that you continue to build to growth is like, freeing up the team's time and getting specialists to do what specialists need to do. And at the
Hmm.
beginning, you are unfortunately the specialist in every single aspect of the organization. And so
Hmm.
one of the parts of that was packing orders, and to just get that role off our plate was it really just opened up the realm of possibilities of what we could get accomplished from 9 to 5 and then, 7 to midnight or whatever it be. But I think that it absolutely allowed us to, focus on what we need to do to grow the business and
Hmm.
then
Hmm.
allow us to achieve a level of economies of scale that has helped us be more profitable from doing it. So we found a partner that we trust wholeheartedly and has been really good to us, and that can be challenging to do. But whatever you can offload and as quickly as possible in a sustainable way is definitely gonna be a huge lever for a business to scale.
Yeah, yeah. And out of US and Canada, which market is growing faster for you?
Yeah, excellent question. The U.S. market absolutely is growing faster, and um, relatively speaking, just because of the size. So Canada is the population of California, and the U.S. is about 10x our size. So there's just a lot of opportunity, and
Hmm.
we do see a great amount of success in the Norway market and Singapore as well. So we do have
Wow.
some other really amazing markets that we love being part of, and
Hmm. Hmm.
but those definitely the US is our fastest growing
Hmm.
market.
Hmm. And how does that work? Like you're talking about Norway, right? Europe and Singapore. Like how does that work? Do you have partners there? Like how does that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we have some really key retailers. So we have two amazing retailers in Norway, and then we have one amazing
Okay.
retailer
Okay.
in
Hmm.
Singapore. And so they'll bring in our product, and we'll ship it here from our Vancouver warehouse, and then it will get over there. And yeah, it's been amazing to work with all three of them.
Love it, love it. And how do you identify like when your brand is ready to expand product line versus like when it should double down on existing winners?
Yeah. Yeah. Ugh, it's the question I wish I knew the answer to. But when we have made the decision to expand our product line, it's been from two places, which is like what is the market yearning for, and what is our brand identity? And then lastly is like, yeah, I think those are probably the two areas that I've always focused on. It's like, okay, well, we want to be more than just the bowl. We want to talk about what's in the bowl. So,
Mhm. Mhm.
moving away from just maybe hard goods was, a scary idea. There's more regulation and supplements and food. And are we ready for that? Were all questions we had. And, could we expand our product line within, consumerism, like in the hard goods? Absolutely. And likely we will. We'll definitely continue to build more enrichment tools. But at the same time, we wanted to make sure that we were providing things that like the brand was really passionate about, and
Mhm.
then also seeing opportunities within the market. Like for example, if we had another lick mat in our line that we're competing for like only so many lick mats in someone's home, whereas like a supplement that we really thought like we made the world's first of, and so that allowed us to have a bit more white space to play with. It's something someone will need monthly, and that felt like a really like values aligned position, and the industry really showed us that they were yearning for it. So obviously scary to like head into a new vertical, but we do think that they complement each
Mhm.
other like so well. So it's really a decision of faith with some information rather than a lot of information and some faith. And I think
Okay.
that's kind of the crazy part of being a founder sometimes.
Love it, love it. Talking about the margin, what margin threshold do you require before launching a new product?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. So it'll change like over time. So my margin for whatever product will look different, and so that's why we'll look at it all the way from so like we have sales, and then you have your cost of goods sold, your gross margin, and then you have other
Mm,
variable expenses. So like shipping, the weight, like things like that. So what margin we may desire on a slow feeder from a gross margin perspective will look actually quite a bit different than what we expect on supplements because we expect that there's some level of recurrence. We have a subscription option. It's much cheaper to ship because of its weight and its size. So, where we expect our gross margin to sit on our hard goods
mm.
can't be what we expect it to look like on our supplementation. So
Yeah.
where we'll look at it is we'll go in and look at the unit economics of, our hard goods and assume that it's a singular purchase. And then we'll go all the way to gross margin, and then we'll look and make some key estimates on what we call our contribution margin. So, like, what is it going to cost to ship to the customer? Like, how much is storage fees going to look like? Like, what are credit card fees going to look like? And then we get all the way to the bottom
Wow.
to what we call our contribution margin. And then we'll look at that in completely different verticals. So if we did
Mm,
that from a D2C perspective, a B2B, then we would do that exact same thing in a new market. So there's no perfect number in that, but we
mm,
do obviously have some like red lines or like it's going to take a lot more to market a supplement that no one's heard of before. And that's going to take more time and energy. So it does need to have a margin perspective that is worthwhile that we can allocate to our time and energy and marketing funds as well. Whereas like a slow feeder
mm,
might, even though we have quite a bit of innovation, the product itself has been around. And we have tweaked it to make it what we believe to be the most innovative thing that exists.
mm,
But
mm,
it's still really a lot easier that like the people are product aware. They just might not be brand aware. Whereas like if we create something completely new, like this supplement, people aren't even product aware, so it takes a bit more
yeah, yeah, yeah.
expense. Yeah.
Mhm. Since you have this experience with finance, right? So do you think that it is easier for you to talk about the margin and everything? Or like, for example, if somebody's a new pet brand founders, that will be difficult for them, right?
Yes, yeah. I think it will be a bit more challenging, but I think like if you're like understanding your unit economics, like what am I going to sell this product for? How often will it be on a discount? What does it cost me? And then there's like tons of amazing like shipping tools out there that can
Yeah.
give you great estimates.
Mm, mm,
Understanding your weight and dimension, you may not know on your first production run, like, you may break
mm,
even on
mm,
that first production run, or even like you might have negative unit economics. And what I mean by negative is like your cost of goods versus your selling, and then maybe your shipping was quite expensive.
mm,
It's now then about figuring out what parts of those puzzle you need to fit. Yeah, I am very lucky given my background that I can, play around with numbers all the time.
mm,
But, there are tools that can be built to help you work with your
mhm,
unit economics in a
mhm.
way that makes the most sense. And, we have to break things before we make them better. So like as I'm over here saying like this is how my unit economics did, it's
Yeah.
at the end of the day, our first production run, I found out our costs. I negotiated down a tiny bit and I said, good to go. And I didn't realize how expensive it might be to ship a slow feeder to Florida my first time.
Yeah.
And so then we had to go and potentially recalibrate what that looks like. Do we need to increase our
Uh-huh.
shipping fees to our customer and stuff like that?
Mhm,
But,
mhm,
um, you know, being aware of the costs that are surrounding your business are like incredibly important as a founder, but understanding like there's no like perfect number for your margins to be successful.
mhm. And as you know, as companies mature, priorities shift between like short-term revenue and long-term value, right? So as you scale, which matter more right now for Dog, increasing AOV or increasing LTV, and why?
Yeah. Ooh. Um, Yeah, wow. In terms of which one that you want to focus on, like I want to say both, but you've
Yeah.
given me an either or question. In terms of AOV, I think there are really small tactics one can make in the short term to help increase AOV. So shipping thresholds, bundling, promotions, these are all like amazing ways to change AOV. But
Mm,
like LTV to me tells me that I have community, I have advocates of the brand. So in terms of what I think is more important for the safety and the building of Dogged, I'm gonna say it's absolutely LTV,
mm,
but like neither should be overlooked. Like both are incredibly important for the viability of any business. So how do you help both continue to be important to your organization? I think venturing into different products like we have, like consumables and our supplements and our enrichment allows people the opportunity to build up an AOV. And
mm.
then LTV is, we're building brand loyalty, we're building great products. So I think that like, yeah, both have
Absolutely.
they're like amazing metrics we both look at, but definitely LTV is the one I'd be more focused on.
Mm, love it, love it. And every experienced founder, eventually learns lessons that cannot be understood from the outside, right? So, what is
Yeah,
one uncomfortable truth about running a pet brand that most founder do not realize until it's too late for them?
yeah. Um, the uncomfortable truth I would say is like it's really, really hard. Like, and I know that seems so generic, but like there are going to be moments that you like want to quit, and there's going to be moments where it feels like it's not working at all, and then the next month it's going to be like the best month of your life. And what I want to say is like if you knew how hard it was before it's like you started, you'd never do it. So honestly, like stop asking people if you should or shouldn't do it. Just go and do it and find out for yourself, and you're gonna love it. But like you're gonna question your sanity on other days. So really that's like the uncomfortable truth that I would say like is it's like it's not for the weak, but anyone is capable of doing it if they really want to do it and the passion's there.
Yeah, yeah. To close clever, I want to shift this towards and like founders listening to who want to build something serious, like not just a product,
Yeah.
right? So if a serious founders came to you today wanting to build a premium pet brand, like what would you be the first thing you would tell them to obsess over?
Yeah. To me, like the two things that I would obsess over, other than like the quality of your product, would
Hmm.
be community. So
Community.
that's the first one that I'd want to share. And these two go hand in hand. So community and content are the two that I would say obsess
Wow.
over. And so community and content and how they work together is like your content creates your community, and then your community is your moat. So if you don't have community, especially someone who's like relatively small in comparison to the size of the industry, it's really, really hard to make a go of it. And why I want people to obsess over that is like that is your differentiator in making a really successful brand. And so if people can advocate and believe in what you're doing, then you can also create these like meaningful relationships that can help build that lifetime value. And so I think if you don't have community, I don't see a viable path forward. So really focusing on that. And how does one get community is by putting yourself out there. And so
Yeah.
that's where the content side comes from, is that
Hmm.
people are inevitably gonna buy their dog a bowl. They're gonna
Hmm.
potentially buy a slow feeder.
Hmm.
And why should they buy it from you? Is really because you have created a world where people are product aware, they're aware of you as a founder, and
Hmm.
they're able to like advocate and want to be part of this community, be part of something a bit more special. So a purchase can be deeply emotional, and building a brand has to have both community and the content to market it.
Love it. Love it. Trevor, this has
Yeah.
been a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much for taking your time to sharing your insight.
Oh, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Uh-huh. And I know our listeners are going to take away ideas to they can apply directly to their own brands. And to everyone tuning in, thank you for listening to Pet Brand Podcast. I'm your host Varnit, and I will see you in the next episode where we continue exploring what it really takes to build and grow a pet brand.